When you hit 100K one time, that's an amazing feat, don't get me wrong, but can you create consistent, repeatable revenue? Somebody who has very high ambition, right, and wants to achieve and maximize and know what their potential is.
It really is incredible. It really is. If people listen to this, I mean, this is really just an incredible number. I mean, I know the growth of the business. I mean, it's really phenomenal.
I get the online coach and I'm like, my gosh, it's a whole different level of accountability. And the workouts are only one aspect of it, as you know now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Philip Palumbo. I'm the host of the Palumbo podcast, where we interview some of the most successful founders of businesses to learn about their experience and how they got to the top. Today, we're very lucky to have Nineveh Madsen, who is the dynamic CEO and co-founder of Superhuman, a performance-driven company helping driven professionals unlock their full potential physically and, most importantly, mentally. Nineveh's journey is a masterclass in reinvention. From her early days as a TV news anchor to becoming a transformational business leader, executive coach, and voice for high-performance living. At Superhuman, she's leading a movement that blends data, discipline, and mindset to help people operate at their peak. We are diving into how she built Superhuman, what true high performance looks like in today's demanding world, and how leaders can sustain excellence without burning out. So Nineveh, I'm beyond excited about this. One of my favorite subject matters, besides what I do for a living and markets and everything, working out, exercise, dieting, and trying to stay at peak performance as an owner of my own and founder of my own business. So I'm really excited about this. So thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. That was quite the intro, by the way. I'm like, I'm going to just send me that intro so I can put it on my bio page. So we have on our website.
We work hard here to get it right. So, and you have a great background. So I wouldn't expect anything less but that type of an introduction. So let's start first with Nineveh, so people really understand your business. So Superhuman, just so the audience understands, I've been involved with Superhuman now since June 31st of last year. It's been really an incredible experience. What I mean by that specifically, not just saying that. First of all, my coach, Nick Butcher, is incredible in terms of staying on top of me and making sure that I'm tackling my goals. And it's really incredible, like how detailed this guy is. I mean, this guy is just like totally on me. He'll look at my inputs that in terms of my diet and things that I'm maybe missing out on, not missing out on. And he's just really on me, which really helps motivate me and keeps me accountable. And for me, whether any type of coaching program that you're in, accountability is really the most important thing. So I am part of your program, which is terrific. So let's start first with people understanding what Superhuman is.
Well, first of all, that was a phenomenal testimonial about Superhuman, what it is that we do, and why we are world-class at what we do, which is because we have the best coaches on planet Earth. And we always sing their praises because their level of care and their level of meticulousness and their desire to make sure that people like you, our clients, succeed is really something that they're passionate about and deeply care about. And I think you've experienced that. So I appreciate that. It's great to hear. And as far as the company goes, so Superhuman, interesting on how it was born. So I'd love to kind of like back up even how I got involved in the business. So my background is pretty diverse, and in a nutshell, I started my career as an esthetician and makeup artist. So I've reinvented myself many times. And from there, I got into broadcast news where I learned storytelling, communication, the art of communication. And I think that really set me up for success in my corporate executive career. So after I left TV news, about a decade into it, I became a corporate executive working at a company called OpenVPN. So it's my father's company, works in cybersecurity. And the opportunity was to come on as a consultant. And I quickly, within a year, took on the role and responsibility of an executive for the first time. And I got a front row seat through that opportunity working in the SaaS space, what it was like to build teams and scale a business from about 4 or 5 million in revenue to 40 million ARR, right? So ARR, yes. So it's quite a ride. It was about an 8-year ride. And during that time, my husband, John Madsen, who's probably who you saw the ad from. Is that not correct, Philip?
Yes, absolutely. The guy's like jacked up, is in great shape, good looking guy. It's like, he's really does a great job on the marketing piece. He really does.
Yeah, that's how he got me too. So when I was working in TV, I asked back then when X was called Twitter, I said, I'm looking to get in shape. Somebody, does anybody know of a great trainer? And some random guy connected us and said, John Madsen, he's the best in the game. So his background is in athletics because he played in the NFL and in human performance and in coaching. That's his world, right? So I met him as a client, and then 3 months later, we started dating. It escalated. We got married. Okay. So we fast forward. That's my background is not in fitness at all. But what my background is what your background is, which is somebody who has very high ambition, all right, and wants to achieve and maximize and know what their potential is. With that kind of personality comes that I'm going to go at all costs, right? And where we find ourselves when we go at all costs, we start to prioritize the business or the career ahead of what? Sometimes even our families, and oftentimes at our own bodies and our mental health. And so I remember the first time that I hit that breaking point, which was in TV news. I had gained weight, and I knew just by nature of what that industry expected, especially as a female, is I need to get in shape. And I also didn't feel great. So that was my introduction into the world of fitness, nutrition, and the human performance coaching space. So once I became a corporate executive, it seemed I hadn't learned the lesson. Here's what's interesting. We always tell our clients, Philip, this isn't a diet. It's a complete lifestyle overhaul. And I'm sorry, but behavior modification does not happen in 1 year, and it doesn't happen in 2 or even 3 sometimes. This is a continuation. This is something you should plan on investing in for the rest of your life. Now, I understand that when I say that, I'm going for LTV here strategically, but I mean that honestly, because when you don't have a coach, when you don't have support, and you don't have community and someone holding you accountable, then you're relying on self. And we all know where that goes, right? So high performers tend to have this habit of prioritizing business and ambition over everything else. That's what I've learned. So when I met John, it was as a result of, being a client like yourself, Philip. And when I switched into the corporate executive role, 8 years in, I found myself in the same spot, burnout, all those bad habits coming back because I wasn't being consistent. I just have to admit. And I said, I can't do this. I got to exit out somehow. I'm working too much. I'm deprioritized myself. And was a new mother. And it was at that time that we both actually signed up for some online coaching, and we got trained as well. And so you got to be a product of your product, right? And that opened up a whole new world for me in terms of, wow, I didn't understand. I didn't know there was this world of online coaching. I had experienced coaching as a personal trainer in the physical gym space. And a lot of people they'll come in and say, well, I think I'm going to just go with a personal trainer. I'm like, you see, I tried that route. John owned gyms, but there was only so far we could get with people inside the gym space. And it wasn't until we were both working, him on the gym and then me inside the corporate executive role as a new mom, just, burning out and trying to juggle all the balls and saying, I want to get back to my pre-baby weight, that we tried this program, and it was online coaching. And that's actually how we met the two coaches that we ended up hiring into our business. So fast forward, COVID hits, okay? And John had started the online portion of his business a year prior to that. So the way the business even came to be was our own experience with online coaching as clients, right? And seeing the impact that had. That was probably the most successful comparative to personal training, because in-person training is like, okay, I go 3 times a week. Sometimes I skip it. It's not consistent. I get the online coach and I'm like, my gosh, it's a whole different level of accountability. And the workouts are only one aspect of it, as you know now as a client. So long story short, COVID hits. He has to pivot, right? He goes online full time. We were living in Utah at the time, and we become location independent, end up moving to Scottsdale. I'm still corporate executive. He's doing the online thing. It explodes. We hit about 100K a month.
So John started the online business.
Yes.
Right. And then so all on his own?
All on his own. I mean, here I am supporting him along the way in terms of holding down the fort from an income perspective, because I was a corporate executive making great money. I'd have not been intimately involved in the business at that point, except we went to like our Tony Robbins stuff together. I would watch. Yeah, we went to what the Ignite Your Fire Within, or what is it called again?
Yes, I know.
On fire.
Yes, yeah. I'm familiar with that. And I heard your husband John on another podcast, telling the story as well, and which is what you're talking about right now. So he started this online business, and he started to have success, with this online business, doing 100,000 a month, which is really great.
Yeah. So this was during the height of COVID, the start of COVID. We hit the first 100K month, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I remember us popping the bottle of champagne and celebrating, because we're so many years into his entrepreneurship, and me working that 9-to-5 style job, but just a very high powered jobs, and making sure we had that stable income while he went. And he always brought income in, but as you know, as a business owner, you have to constantly reinvest into the business until you figure out the formula that, again, makes you spike in that way. So it was a little bit of, preparation, a little bit of luck, economics, all those factors always fold into business, whether we realize it or not, right? And when I say luck, it's like timing of, nobody predicted COVID would happen and everything would go online. The same time that we saw the spike in John's business, same thing happened in cybersecurity, because all of a sudden everybody was working from going to the office and remotely. So same thing with the VPNs, right? Just boom, overnight. It was insane. And that put a lot of business at a new growth trajectory that we hadn't seen before. So when we moved to Scottsdale, I think we were about not even 6 months into our move. And I'm like, how's the business going? How's it going? Because I've been holding down the fort. He's like, we're on pace to hit 2.5 million this year. I'm like, what? That's crazy. I'm like, wait, hold on. You got my attention now. When you hit 100K one time, that's an amazing feat, don't get me wrong, but can you create consistent, repeatable revenue, right? Because what you see a lot of in the marketplace is someone hits 100K a month and they're like, I'm a 7-figure business owner. I'm like, you are not a 7-figure business owner until you have hit 100K a month for 12 months consecutively and know that you can do that on repeat. Then please respectfully call yourself a 7-figure business owner, right? Because it's different to hit it once than to, you understand, customer acquisition is one thing, but retention is a whole other thing. And keeping both of those engines going at the same time is critical. And that requires a learning curve within itself, right? So 100K a month is like, you're at the starting line. Honestly, you're just at the starting line from my perspective. 10K, 20K a month. Hey, I'm not, saying that's self-employment, right? She hit 100K, you probably have a couple of, team members by now, and you're investing in some infrastructure, a little bit, but not a lot. So he got my attention saying, the trajectory is 2.5 million. And I said, wow, how much are you spending on advertising? He's like, about 100,000 a month. I'm like, you're spending 100,000 a month on advertising. Well, that's a lot of brand equity that you're building. And at that time, the company was called Athletic AF. And I said, well, listen, I would love to rebrand your company. And this is while I was working as a corporate exec, because I was VP of marketing and customer success in cybersecurity. And so I love branding, and I got the itch to want to just, if you're investing 100,000 a month and people are seeing that, I think we're really limiting ourselves when we're calling ourselves Athletic AF, athletic and fit, or athletic. You can use your imagination on what the F word stood for, which was the F word. So take it one with another. I'm like, I think we'll alienate some clients. I think you're just boxing us into athletics and fit. And I think there's a way bigger market for this. So I'd love the opportunity to rebrand. So went to work on rebranding it, came up with Superhuman. And that was based on who is John? When I was looking at rebranding, I'm like, who is he? What does he represent? And really did a deep dive. And I thought, the guy represents to me someone who is above and beyond that of a normal human being, which is what the definition of superhuman is, because he played in the NFL. He's just a big guy, as you know, and he's achieved more than most humans do. So that's where the name came from. Was really,
by the way, the name is phenomenal, and I'm not just saying that to be a nice guy, but that it really is right. I mean, it's a terrific name, and it's very catchy for so many reasons. So I think it's very well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So once we did the rebrand, he called me one day and he said, we were doing events at that time as well. And he said, there's not enough meat for the clients at the event. And I'm like, how is this my problem? He's like, I don't know. I'm just frustrated. There's not enough meat. I said, well, no offense. I think you got a lot of men in charge. And I think you need a couple of women in there to make sure that the event goes smoothly and there's enough food on the table for all these male clients at the time that are eating a lot of protein and a lot of food. So my step into the business was rebranding, but him calling me with a problem, which sounded like an operational issue to me, right? So I said, I kind of want to leave the corporate executive gig anyway. Why don't I take a step back, maybe work part-time and I can help you with a few things. And maybe we could launch to the female market too. And that's how I got into the business. So it's a very long story about what is it that Superhuman does. I wanted to make sure that your audience understands my background, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs think and want to just start businesses and they don't realize there's different paths to entrepreneurship. Some people become entrepreneurs as a result of being in family business. Some people become entrepreneurs because that's what they studied. Right. Some just become founders because, in this day and age, there's an opportunity for anyone and everyone to be a founder. And some of us, like myself, come from a long history of work in corporate. And I think it's that experience that combined with John's marketing know-how that really took the business to where it is today. So what we do is help guys like you, Philip, founders, executives, and entrepreneurs prioritize their bodies, because our bodies is something we put on the back burner in pursuit of our, potential or ambition. Our ambition drives us so much that we tend to forget about everything else, right?
Yeah. And when people forget that, when you do get into decent shape, it's a mental state that really is elevated, which actually adds more value to your business, So when you're out of shape and you're drinking a lot and you're eating poorly, it affects your business and your energy and your stamina. And so founders that are listening to this, if they really did take care of themselves and spent the time doing that and focusing a little bit on that, and they see the gains of that, it changes everything. It enhances you. It creates more energy. So people really have to understand that. I want to go to, now John has said this publicly, and I won't say this number. You can say it if you want to, but John has talked about the growth of your business and where you guys are at now in sales. Mm-hmm. So, and you guys are up like 10, 12 times, and the business is about 5 years old approximately. So if I'm a founder listening to this, I mean, it's incredible the growth that you guys have achieved. And a lot of that is through the use of today's day and age, which is called digital. So you guys took digital marketing to another level. And what I always tell people all the time is, now I've had experience with your company, so I know you guys know what you're doing, and you guys really do a great job. But oftentimes, and many times, you could have two products exactly the same, but this product A is a much better market than product B. So product A is doing more sales than product B, because product B is not a good salesperson. In fact, when I was talking to Nick Butcher about this, I said, Nick, you do such a great job. Why don't you do this on your own? And what he said to me, he goes, I don't know how to market. I'm not a marketing guy. And that's why, people like him, and thankfully we have people like him, because, if everybody was like us, then we have no employees. I'm exaggerating, but you understand what I'm saying. So,
yeah,
so exactly. I guess what I wanted to tackle real quick is the digital aspect. So how can you, what kind of, and without, giving up the secret sauce, but John talked about this in one of his podcasts that, he went through different trial and errors to eventually get it right. And I see now he's even doing different things too, as it relates to digital marketing. So talk about the experience of digital marketing and how it took you guys to the next level.
Yeah, that was when I walked into the business, on trajectory for 2.5 million. We were just in the mail market at the time, and we weren't even profitable. So the advertising game, when you talk about digital marketing, our avenue towards growth has been relying on advertising. Some businesses rely on referrals, right? Some businesses rely on building a lot of organic content. But we're going to go direct to consumer through advertising, right? And that is a risky game because a lot of people, it's not palpable to them of losing money on the front end in order to gain on the back end, or even figuring out the formula on how to acquire a customer at a profit. So that all comes down to really understanding your customer. And I think on the men's side, nobody understands the customer more than John.
Right.
We are you, right, in essence. And so has this unique gift and ability, not because it comes naturally, but because he's been studying marketing and psychology
Correct.
for over a decade. So it's a combination of marketing and then psychology, and deep psychology, and what triggers someone on a psychological level to click an ad and take action, right? So he took years to perfect that formula, because I could say, oh, here's what it is. You film an ad, then it goes, goes to a landing page, you do a VSL, video sales letter, and then you have an application process that filters, and you booked on a sales calendar, and then boom, customer acquisition happens. Okay, at a high level, that's what it is. But it's not that simple. There's so many nuances to that funnel to make sure that funnel works, right? So that's what he is a genius at. And that's what he was able to crack with the help of, people around him as well. But he had the ability to crack that messaging. And when the messaging hit, and it hit a vein and it hit a nerve, it just flew and it took off. Just like that COVID, like I described COVID, where we hit that 100K month. It took us probably a year after that, when I joined the business, a grind. I'm like, okay, so not only do I walk into the business, I launched the female side. I shut the female side down, and I said, this business ain't ready to go to the female market. I'm lifting up the operational hood, and there's a lot I need to get to work on here, and I need to fix. You don't even have a CRM. You are managing clients and rosters out of Monday.com. I'm like, this whole thing will break and collapse once you figure out how to go to the market in a bigger way. And at that time, we were only getting 40 new male customers a month. I said, I need to build the infrastructure so that we can scale to 400 new customers a month. And he's like, well, you crazy girl.
Wow.
And I'm like,
I love that. That's like Grant Cardone thinking 10X.
Yeah, no, but I had to think in 10X, because when you think of 2X, and I'm sure you've read this before, you get nowhere. The brain can't think creatively. So I'm like, let me just build from the framework of, we're going to somehow hit 300 to 400 new customers a month. And you got to work on the messaging and figure out how to capture that demand and convert it. So he's all customer acquisition. Once a customer is acquired, I focus on everything else from like a scalability perspective. And scale is more than one person, right? If you can't figure out marketing and sales, and that's not to say that I'm not involved in revenue. I am absolutely involved in revenue and revenue strategy, but he is the architect, and the artistry comes from him from a messaging perspective. So as soon as he hit the formula, we were able to scale that ad spend. And all of a sudden we're at 150, 200 new customers a month on the male side. Okay. So we went, I think it was from like 2.5, 3 million to 8 million, and then 25 million, and then to 50 million. Okay. So a little over 4 years is what we're talking about here.
So 4 years. I'm sorry, I missed those numbers. Say those numbers again.
So year one, I guess we call it, remember that 100K month, 2.5 million trajectory. Then we hit 8 million, and then it was like 25 million jump, and then a 50 million jump. So
unbelievable
and insane, right?
Unbelievable. It really is incredible. It really is. For people listen to this, I mean, this is really just incredible numbers. And I know it's true because I mean, I know the growth of the business. I mean, it's really phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, we're 273 on the Inc. 5000. You can't get listed on the Inc. 5000 unless you turn over your financials. So, that involves your CFO, your finance manager to verify those numbers. So I'm very proud to say we were 273 on the Inc. 5000 last year. And then I just got the female founder by Inc. magazine top 500. So I know that a lot of people see the ads, and then, naturally when we see advertising these days, we get skeptical, like, who is that person and why are they talking to me that way? And I think that's the reaction that John gets. But there's a really great marketer and someone who understands marketing and sales, somebody who understands operational scale, right, which is me. And then we have a great coaching leadership team that actually I worked with on kind of the model of how to scale the coaching infrastructure. You see what I'm saying? So we use technology and people to do it, because I'm like, here's the flow coming in. We have to hire fast enough to manage all the clients. So I'm proud to say we have a great, like you were saying, your coach, like, hey, you're great at what you do. Why don't you just do it on your own? And he's like, because I don't know how to market and sell. So I'm like, when I figured out that John was a master at marketing and sales, and he always has been, when I look back, I'm like, well, you don't find that very often. So I'm like, we call him that. He doesn't even have an official title. He's like, I'm founder and rainmaker. We call him Rainmaker. Literally, you make it rain. Go make it rain, right? Yeah. So he doesn't even function in that, like, I'm a CEO or I'm a this. He's like, I don't want a job. I just, I think about, all he thinks about is basically how to introduce product and service to the marketplace and how to get people to purchase. And he's like, I trust you guys have it handled on the back end. We have a great product, though. We have a great product, and that's key to retention and LTV, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's true. And so here's the part to me that is fascinating, because I know as a business owner, so when he was doing $2.5 million, some people may say, okay, I'm doing $2.5 million. I'm going to take $500,000 off the table, invest it in real estate, stocks, bonds, whatever it may be, and start to build. I always say, like, here's your business. Here's the assets you're building here. And you want to try to build this up to a certain level to be financially independent. And then, if you sell your business and you exit, then that would be great as well. But a lot of people are concentrated in their business in terms of their total net worth, right? That's very typical. 80% of founders' business net worth is in the actual business itself.
Correct.
So to have the courage to just reinvest everything back into the business, right, based on the formula that you currently have, is not the easiest thing to do. So just walk us through quickly how you thought about, or even how John even thought about that.
So that's all about your risk tolerance, right? Your appetite for risk. And from my perspective, I said, you have something here, you have a viable product, or else it wouldn't convert like this and it wouldn't be so sticky. So from my experience in SaaS, I was like, you have a sticky product from my perspective. You've got great fulfillment. And if I can apply the SaaS mentality and sort of SaaSify the service in a way, Absolutely. And you can go to war in the marketplace, essentially, then I think we have a winning formula. And based on what I've seen in my experience in business, I think this has way more potential from a revenue perspective than we realized. So what took us from actually 25 to 50 was taking what we did on the men's side and replicating it on the women's side. So we went to the female market and we just went copy paste. But I mean, I make it sound easy, like copy paste. But essentially, I'm like, let's build the infrastructure, understand the formula to the messaging, and apply that methodology or that method, that secret sauce, and open up to the female market. Would they react in the same way? Boom, same thing. And we're like, oh, now we service the male market and the female market, right? So we expanded basically our customer base. And when you're asking about why not stay smaller and take less risk and focus on financial independence for you as an owner and your family, right?
Right.
We've definitely invested into the business mostly, but invested some cash out into different areas to make sure, well, that cash is working for you, right? But most of the net worth is in the business. And why is that our mentality? Because like yourself, you're talking about an exit or an acquisition. I think the win, even though this is very risky, the win is going to be much larger on the back end than it would if I concentrated on being less risky and taking cash out, investing it, which is what most founders or business owners are probably advised to do. And it's not, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but when you have a product like ours and you have the opportunity and the market is asking for it, I think right time, right product, right industry. Do you get where I'm going with that? You run with it in terms of opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I agree with you. So one of the things that I think a lot of business owners think about today is, yes, I'm going to reinvest everything into my business, but is there going to be enterprise value 5-10 years from now because of AI, with the potential risk that AI starts to take market share away from my business? Not just your business, not just my business, right? Many people's businesses. Do you guys think about that?
Yes. And I think that I see what's happening in the market. I read the market every day. I know what products and services are coming out in the marketplace. I'm well aware of things like what Aura is doing or what Whoop is doing, how much money they're raising, what they are vertically integrating, for example. Everybody is going after this $1 trillion market of health and longevity right now. Peptides, blood work, and we're investing in all that infrastructure as well. But let me tell you what they're doing and what we're doing and what differentiates us. So Superhuman, the future is human. When we were thinking about the branding, I mean, we have a couple of taglines, which is like, go get what's yours. The pursuit never stops. And I'm like, listen, this is what the market is doing. And I come from the technology sector. So what I've done is I'm saying it's not a this or that, it's both. Okay. And that's going to be the differentiator for us, because at the end of the day, here's where technologists are getting it wrong. We are absolutely an AI first company, right? I'm obsessed with technology and SaaS. We've actually invested millions of dollars into a platform that we're developing right now, which will be released to the client base starting in June, and all our clients will be migrated by the end of September. And what I've thought about is how much fragmentation there is in the marketplace, Philip. So think about it. You've got your doctor over here in the evolution of healthcare, right? So you've got urgent care, hospitals, doctor. But then there's a whole nother sector and market in terms of performance where you're looking for getting some answers on your blood work. How is your health? What is your biological age? How can I optimize this even further? And then you have your fitness and nutrition. And nutrition, by the way, is the foundation. So you can do all of this stuff. If you haven't done the foundation, just like in business, if you got a shaky foundation, you can't stop worrying about yeah. But if you look at the human performance space, there is an ecosystem to this. So you have the wearable market, right? And then you have and I'm like, there's all this fragmentation that's happening. And what I'm looking to do is actually solve that fragmentation, because I'm annoyed that I have to log into the app to check my steps, and then I have to log into a different app to log my food. And then I have to log into a separate app to get my workouts and talk to my coach. And then I have to go to another service provider for my blood work and my peptide protocol. So my roadmap and my solution is to remove that fragmentation and build an ecosystem that clients can experience it all in one.
Yeah,
now that's extremely ambitious.
But I love it. You have to be like that, and I think you'll accomplish that.
It'll take some work, but that's what actually really excites me about the evolution of where Superhuman is going and what we've invested in. Because at the end of the day, if you're looking at an exit or an evaluation, it's going to be about, are you going where the market is going, and are you ahead of the market?
Right.
We're going to integrate AI into and have it power us into our ability to scale. I don't want to quite give away all my roadmap on how we can not only be upstream in the way that we are, Philip. So we're upstream right now. And by that, I mean, we target executives and entrepreneurs, and our price point is here comparatively to the rest of the products and services that are similar. because we pride ourselves on delivering like a concierge level support that is required for people like you to even take notice or take action.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't know about you, but freemium doesn't really work on high performers. You do it, you take it, you download it, and then what does technology get wrong? Behavior modification requires human interaction.
Right.
Sorry, there's only so much that AI and technology can do to help you change your behavior. Now, what has been the most important aspect of helping you change your behavior in this program, Philip?
It's been Nick, without a doubt. I mean, it's he like, I got to a point, I'm like, I can't take this anymore. But then he like smacked me around a little bit, and here I am, still fighting the battle. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Nineveh, and I do think, as it relates to AI, I think the baby boomer generation, I think the generation before our generation, and then the generation before us, I think we're fine. I just think maybe the younger generation may get so used to this robotic way of living that perhaps may remove the human element of things. I don't know for sure, obviously. I can't imagine that being the case, but I can. So that's how I think about things. But I do want to shift gears. In regards to exit planning, what I tell a lot of founders all the time, because sometimes be like, well, I'm not thinking about exiting. I'm not thinking about exiting now. And I'm saying you should be thinking about exit always, because your business should always be running as best in class. And because if it does run in best in class and you keep it at that level when you are ready, and there are many people, I just had a client just a few years ago, all of a sudden got approached out of nowhere and it was an incredible deal and they ended up doing the deal. The question I have is, were they really at best in class before they sold? So as you think about exit planning, right? Again, doesn't mean you need to exit tomorrow, but do you think about exit planning, and do you think about setting your business up properly for an exit? Because your business has all the elements of what I would say a high multiple business, because of the recurring revenue. It seems like it's institutionalized. You have multiple clients, not just one client. So you have a lot of factors that will help get you to a higher multiple maybe than your competitor. So talk me through how you think about exit.
I have thought about exit. I think any smart CEO has to think about exit so that they can build from that framework. Because what you don't want is, you don't want to have a business that is dependent on the founders, right? And so I've been working very hard. We've been working very hard on, making sure we have enough institutional knowledge. We've operationalized all the things that we need to, and there's still work that needs to be done. So I'm looking at the business in a way of like, how do I fire myself as CEO, by the way? And when you first start a business, I was wearing so many different hats. I mean, I don't care what the title, just give me the title of janitor. I'm still the janitor, okay? At the end of the day, CEO just defines, here's your title, and you got a lot of responsibilities. So you have to do everything and anything you can to make sure this business succeeds and the people inside it succeeds, it's a heavy responsibility. But my approach is, okay, what problem do I need to solve in the business right now? What's broken or what isn't operationalized, and I'll go spend my time there. So I've absolutely thought about exit. I always think about exit. I always think about, how do I fire myself from this role in the company? So there are certain aspects of the business that I'm heavily involved in right now, and I'm like, way too involved, Nineveh. If this is how involved you're going to be, you're just giving yourself a very high paid job at the end of the day. And so I always think from that framework. And in terms of exploring exit and what evaluation would be, we have been approached by big banks, right? Because they've taken notice. And I've explored those conversations to understand, what does a private equity deal look like?
Absolutely.
What does an IPO pathway look like? What does an acquisition look like, period? Typically from a PE is what an acquisition would be.
Right.
And then you've also got like brokers who shop you around, for example, for an exit. So definitely have explored it. We've discussed it, because I think you have to have somewhat of an end in mind, right?
Absolutely.
Right, we're just enjoying what we're doing. We're enjoying building, but I think it'd be foolish to just say, we're just gonna, can this last forever? I mean, look at the market, right? And look at the growth rate. And as you know, typically with businesses, you hit a huge spike, and then you stabilize, and then you have to find a way to like vertically integrate. So you're like, where's the ceiling, and at what point do you not want to reach that ceiling? Because then it's about the timing of the exit, because based on your numbers, that's going to determine the multiple that you get and the evaluation. So I think figuring that out is probably the challenging part. Is
That's a great way, but that's a great way to, not to interrupt you, but that's a really great way to think about it. Like, so a lot of founders, because it's the biggest number you're gonna, it's the biggest event of your life as it relates to a monetary event. And the biggest question is am I doing it at the right time? Right? Like you just said, and understanding that isn't difficult to do, because what is the ceiling of your business and many other businesses out there? So, and that's why I do think, like when I coach my clients through this stuff, it's really, what is your number at the end of the day that you need to be able to maintain the lifestyle that you love and you're comfortable with? I think all of us should really understand that number. Mm-hmm. Because if you could, and if you're ready to exit your business and you don't want to do it anymore for whatever reason, and you can sell and hit your number, and that pool of money will generate cash flow so you can live the lifestyle you want to live, or maybe even start another business. So that's why I do think you should be thinking more in terms of that, not, hey, how is the timing right now? Because I just think that's very, very difficult. It's almost like time in the market, right? You can't, right. It's hard to really figure that out. But I do think what you said was really interesting. Like, so where the business is at now, are we at its peak? How much more can we actually truly grow and handle? So I do think thinking through that is a good way to think about it.
Not at the peak, because I'm building the platform. So
right.
that's a long game, right? And that's a risk that we're willing to take, because we know that the technology will be worth something as well, right? And truly building like a subscription model around it. So we have some ideas that I think it will take us some time, but I have some thoughts on how I can create overnight distribution to like a product that is maybe doesn't have a coach element to it, but it has everything else.
Absolutely.
So I'm because I come from SaaS, I had a lot of conversations with my father over the years, and he was always talking to me about how he wanted to go IPO or should he go with an exit. And he would bring me to the table with private equity companies, and I would see the conversations and hear the numbers being thrown around. So I think that really like impacted me.
Of course.
Like, well, if he thought he could do it, why can't I do it? And so it's weighing really like, well, what is it that you want out of life too? Because that's something the business owner has to ask themselves. Like, what is the lifestyle you want? What is important to you? What are your values? Like for me, an exit also means that all my team members, all my employees win out of it too. I'm not interested in an exit that only benefits myself and John. I'm interested in an exit that benefits everyone. So that comes down to figuring out the structure in terms of your business entity. Right. And what does that look like? Stock, distribution, and then just more complications come with that. But I think I remember when I worked in tech, and having skin in the game in that way absolutely incentivized me to want to perform at a totally different level, because I think all of us, whether we're founders or not, we have the dream of what? Financial freedom. And as employees, because I've sat on the other side of that, you are on a fixed income regardless. I think that
that's right. That's right.
One of the things that makes me a great CEO is that I was an employee for over 20 years before I became a business owner. So I build from the framework of an employee. Like, it's important for my staff to have health insurance benefits and 100% coverage. And I think when you treat your people really well and you get great coaches like Nick, who doesn't want to leave, right? Because you know how challenging it is to build a business.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, are we crazy?
Yeah, it's really true. But I want to just share a story with you really quick. So I remember I was away in Florida with my family, and my kids were playing with this other young kid, and the dad of this child was watching my kids play basketball together. And I walked over to him, and we started talking. And he asked me what I did, and I told him. I asked him what he did, and he said, "Oh, he just exited his business." And then he didn't tell me how he didn't. And I asked him questions about it. Well, it's great, and he said to me, he goes, Phil, I was sitting at. Long story short, I was sitting at the table signing the document to exit. He goes, and the buyer said to me, "Why didn't I sell the business when it was worth $50 million?" And And he said to them, because I just had this, I just had this aspirations and vision that it could be worth a lot more one day. So he sold for 500 million.
Wow, that gave me
Right.
chills.
So, but just, I mean, at 50 million, it was probably his number. It's a great number. Right. And, but for him, he just had this vision that he could sell for a lot more. So like going back to what you just said before, here's where your company Super is right now, but you have this vision that it could be a lot more than that. And just think about that, Nineveh. I mean, most people would say, if I can sign right now for 50 million, I'll take that deal. But there are these entrepreneurs like us that have this vision that, hey, I know that I can get this business to an entirely different level. And it's crazy how we think this way, but that is the way we think.
Yeah, I have those days where I'm like, oh, there's somebody who will buy this thing off my hands, right?
Yeah.
It's how do you stay in the game? No different than your program is like, how do I stay in this game so I don't go back to where I was or who I was? And it's one day at a time. And the more that you achieve or the more challenges that you overcome, the more resilience you build. And I think it has something to do with the neuroplasticity in our brains, actually, where if you were to study entrepreneurs, it's not like I had this level of risk tolerance 5 years ago. No way. I look at how I was in the business when I first joined and how much anxiety I had to the levels of anxiety I have today. But every time you're trying to break through to a new level, you experience that, like, well, I do anyway, this like disruption going on in my body and and I'm like, okay, this is just another one of those challenges. You're trying to break through like beliefs, and it's just, I think unlocking those levels is what's interesting. And then if the money is the reward on the other side, that's amazing. Then you have something to show for it. But let's say the exit, would I just stop working and retire? I probably just like chill out a little bit and teach me how to chill out. But I think I would just remain hungry. Once you're an ambitious person is always an ambitious person.
Yeah. You know, my wife says it all the times to me. She goes, Phil, you exhaust me. She goes, you know, you just never stop. It's like, when is enough? Right. And I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I guess it's just, like you said, the word ambition. We're ambitious and we just love what we do. We're adding, both you and I are adding tons of value to people's lives in every aspect. And I guess it just motivates us, right? Not guess it. We do get motivated, but that is what it is. That's the psychology behind it. So Nineveh, I'm going to give you the last word about the business or anything else that you want to share with the audience.
Well, something I'd love to share, because I am a female CEO and female founder, and I think there is a differentiation, although a lot of women in the market want to say, like, stop identifying yourself as a female founder or female CEO. I think there's a different challenge building as a woman and a working mother, right? So you mentioned your wife, and I think that sometimes I have a difficulty accepting my ambition because in terms of my value system, my family comes first. So I've had to architect the business in a way that still provides me with the time that I want with our daughter, for example. And John is the same way. So I think that has been my biggest challenge, honestly, as like a female founder and female CEO and trying to stay in the game, is that constant, I don't know how many listeners are women of yours, Philip, but if there are, maybe there's a lot of men that listen to your show. And maybe I would just encourage them to actually share it with the women in their lives, whether it's their own executives or even other female founders that they know. It's just that it is more challenging from my perspective to build as a female because I have a different lived experience. And I go through like guilt and shame, and maybe those are not things that you experience. But so if there are women listening, I would just say that don't be ashamed of your ambition. We need to start normalizing that you can have both, and that you just need to figure out how you can get enough support around you as a woman, right, to be able to achieve the things that you want to achieve. And I would just say to encourage women to stay in the game. Because we have a lot of potential, and I think it's worth knowing what your potential is.
Love it. Nineveh, thank you so much for today. It was educational, great perspectives. I mean, there's so much for people to learn from this. So thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.